What's going on, everybody? It's Joseph here. Welcome to my review of Ray Edwards' book, How to Write Copy That Sells. I recently just ordered this based on a recommendation from a friend. I finished reading it in a single weekend. It's about a 2 to 3 day read. I had some extra time today, and so I thought I would sit down and just share my experience reading this book, some of the practices, the tactics as far as copywriting goes that I've learned, how I've applied these, and of course, the big question, whether or not I would recommend this book and who would I recommend it to specifically. In order to keep this review concentrated and condensed in information, and kind of to safeguard myself from going off on too many tangents, I've got some bullet points that I want to hit here on screen to kind of give some context as to who Ray Edwards is, the author, and my intent in actually reading this book. So this is the bio pulled straight from his Amazon author's page. It says, the author is an American copywriter with more than 30 years experience and has written a wide range of books on writing copy. Now, Ray Edwards is friends with many well-known copywriters in the industry today. Michael Hyatt actually has the review at the top of the cover of this book, the best copywriting teacher I know. Very powerful words. And in fact, that is exactly what I read this book for, to learn more about copywriting. In fact, executing many projects in the digital marketing realm. Copywriting obviously is a major component of whether or not you're effective in your own skill set and abilities online. And so I really wanted to master that. I've actually had a couple people recommend that I work on developing my copywriting skills just a little bit more. And that's why I wanted to read this book. Now, I was a little bit disappointed initially because the actual format of this book really is what I would describe as a shotgun blast of everything that can work in the copywriting realm. It does not go deep into the psychology of marketing. It's a very strictly bullet point structure. Now, there are some pros and there are some cons to this in the actual format of the book. For instance, one of the pros is these reviews at the end of each chapter. I'm not sure if you can see that, but this is a chapter 6 quick summary, and it details essentially what you've learned, a review of everything that was covered in that particular chapter. So that was helpful for remembrance sake. And actually, you might actually be able to see some of the notes that I took in this book, and there's a couple of them, really small red pen at the top of the page, but I'll get into what actually I took and how I applied this information in just a second. But I will say this bullet point structure worked against the book because every single point had an endless amount of facets in subpoints to it. For example, and I've actually written this on screen, there were 4 different 21 bullet point lists of everything that you need to follow for creating an effective sales copy for a landing page. Now, that was a little bit too much information. There's list building copy, survey copy, product copy, JV recruitment copy, pre-launch copy. These are different kinds of copy, not the bullet structure for the landing page. The big PDF, unpredictable plot complication copy, countdown copy, the sales letter, the post-launch week copy, the missing piece. And all these different ideas, and this is one particular structure for actually launching a digital product, but there's all these different aspects that he encourages you, Ray Edwards encourages you to check the box with. It was a lot of information, too much information. I would have loved if it could have been condensed a little bit more into maybe 3 big ideas, 3 actionable steps at the very end, or things to keep in mind, notes to take, if you will, versus really this dump of ideas that it's up to the reader to digest and take away from. And that's kind of the lens of this book. I felt he wanted to cover all of these different aspects of copywriting so that you can kind of identify that aspect or that particular style that you most resonate with for whatever project that you're working on, because there are many different projects covered. There's the effective, again, we kind of went over some of the different ideas, building a list, survey copy, designing a landing page. And that's one thing that this book will focus on that I really did appreciate, is that it focused heavily on the translation of these copy abilities to the digital realm, how to write emails or how to properly create a landing page, how to even actually implement this in titles on YouTube videos or titles on job postings that you have online. And so that was something that's super important for me. And I actually applied this to many YouTube videos that I put out. If you don't know already, I do have a second channel where I talk about TikTok marketing in particular and how to scale an audience on that platform. And a lot of the videos on that channel were actually based on, and these are some of the notes that I took. Right here, you can see I've circled 36 and wrote YouTube title, give me 30 minutes and I'll grow you more blog traffic. I'll give you more blog traffic. Now, I had a very similar video on YouTube that I put out with a very similar title. It did really well. I actually received a lot of compliments from it. And interestingly enough, a lot of people in my same TikTok education industry ended up copying the exact same title for SEO purposes for their videos. But that tells you something. It is super effective in creating that promise and of course delivering on it if your information is of high value. Another facet of this book that I want to address is Ray Edwards' excessive use of acronyms, which is not a bad thing. I mean, the purpose of acronyms really is to, in one word, create triggers for different concepts that you're encouraged to remember. Obviously, the Army has an acronym for this process, KISS, Keep It Simple Stupid. And it's a bit of acronym meta there describing the purpose of acronyms. But that being said, there were so many different acronyms that were communicated in this book that it's hard to remember what exact concept was what. For instance, there was the PASTOR acronym, which talked about the structure for a landing page online. There was the RAGE acronym. There was another one that had to do with soil. And there were all these different ideas. And again, it's hard to pinpoint without reviewing the book and really committing these ideas to memory what exactly they were talking about. Another idea too is the templates that were actually provided in this book, which I found super, super, super helpful. He provided real examples of the copy that he wrote for a particular situation that he was working on with a client, building out an email list. He would talk about the objective that he wanted to accomplish and his thought process behind writing the copy that he actually did. That was super, super helpful. Very, very practical confirmations of the concepts that he was teaching in his book, which I always appreciate, a practical application of that which you're theorizing about, because obviously it's one thing to talk about it in theory and another to apply it or show how it was applied in practice. I will say overall, the book was very, very easy to understand. I think the concepts could have been simplified a little bit more, and I think really that is my essentially bid copy thesis for this entire book. I think it was just shotgun this dump of information, and that was meant to provide you, the beginner, with a huge, or at least a vast understanding of every possible way, all the ways that copy can sell, essentially. And of course, I'm not claiming to be an expert in any particular way. I always like to have a student mindset, and my goal in reading 1 to 2 books and as far as writing copy goes a month is really to develop my understanding of the world of copywriting. And I will say that going into this with the approach of learning about the psychology of copywriting, which is essentially what the Amazon reviews, or not the Amazon reviews, but the Amazon synopsis of this book was really advocating for, is that it dives deep into the psychology of the customer, and it really dives deep into the structures that you need to implement, not why they're particularly effective. I will say there was also a huge push to his website, to different products online throughout this book. It's very similar to Russell Brunson's .com empire, well, his ClickFunnels empire, with the way he structures his book. You know, there's always some sort of a lead magnet that's being pushed to the reader, which was a little bit annoying, you know, and I certainly don't mind that, especially if you know what to look for. You really don't pay any close attention to those aspects. But that being said, that was just a little bit of a tangent to keep in mind if you're thinking about reading the book. I have actually checked out a lot of the resources talked about in my spare time, and I will say that really they are nothing substantial. They are helpful if you want a little bit more in-depth analysis on certain concepts in the book that Edwards has written different articles or even had different videos about these subject matters online. But I think everything you really need to know is in here. So who this book is for and who would I recommend it to in particular? Now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not any sort of high-level marketing copywriting guru. I'm still actively learning, and my knowledge of the copywriting industry isn't particularly advanced or vast in any means. However, before reading this book, I already found myself applying a lot of this information in my respective marketing projects, and I found a lot of redundancies in what I already knew. Again, not as an expert, simply as a beginner. And so keep that in mind as you're reading this book. If you're looking for an overview of how to effectively sell to customers, how to design landing pages with actual practical examples or emails, or even writing newspaper articles, there's a couple examples of how he's applied that skill set in that particular ad format. There's a lot of great examples on how to give you an overview of structuring your copy. However, if you consider yourself an experienced marketer and copywriter and are looking to learn a little bit more deeper analysis, more information on the psychology of great copywriting, marketing, and advertising, and learning more about the persuasion of audiences using keywords and emotional triggers and things of that nature, then I would recommend sticking with some of the greats of the advertising industry: David Ogilvy, Hopkins, Schwab, Sugarman, and other legends of the advertising world. But that being said, this was a great read. I thoroughly enjoyed the time that I invested into this book. I don't regret it whatsoever. There's a lot of valuable processes and information, however minute, that I will be applying to future endeavors, if not that I'm applying already. If you enjoyed my analysis and my review of this book and you want to see me review future books on the advertising world, copywriting, etc., leave them in the comments below and consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel again for future reviews. I'll leave the Amazon link to this book in the description below so you can go ahead and check out some of the other reviews just to get a really an overview of all the different opinions on it, the good and the bad, in addition to what you've learned in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, we'll talk next time. Hope to see you in the next video.